Welcome back to Prime to Houston. As we get into the Super Bowl matchup 2024 with the young Houston Texans, Coach Prime, Shador Sanders, Shiloh Sanders. Man, he has his squad ready to go in this Super Bowl matchup. Let's get into the matchups and who are the X factors and the players to key in on for this Super Bowl. Let's start with the Houston Texans, man, the number one team in the league. Shador Sanders, 7,520 yards, 72 touchdowns, 25 interceptions, almost 70%, 68% on the year. He's thrown for 442.4 yards a game, 133.1 QBR, 12.6 yards a play. 58 sacks, though. He's been sacked a lot this season. Got to change that. In the run game, 265 carries for almost 2,000 yards, 1769. Anthony Israel, he did want to hit the 2,000 yard mark. That was his goal. 6.7, 31 rushing touchdowns. You got to turn down the turnovers. They got a total of 15 fumbles from AI and Shador Sanders that got to be toned down. When you think about the New York Giants and what they bring to the table, their quarterback has played steady, really good all year. When you match his numbers up to Shador Sanders, obviously you're not going to see the same type of numbers, but this is a great year. Almost 5,000 yards passing, 39 touchdowns, 13 INTs, 66% on the year, 286 a game, 104.6 QBR. When it comes down to the run game, he did carry the ball 304 times. Saquon Barkley with 1257, 13 rushing touchdowns. That averaged 73.9, 74 yards a game, only 3 fumbles on the year with 49 broken tackles. When it comes down to their receiving core, Zay Flowers is the guy. 108 catches on the year. He's in his second season. He's playing lights out for them. But Marvin Mims Jr. is a compliment receiver. He had another 1,000 yard receiver. The tight end Sean Ford played really well for them with 6 touchdowns, 683 yards. I do think the guy that's going to have to step up in this ball game is going to be Jadakiss Bonds. He's had a few games this year where he's been definitely really good for them. Let's take a look at what he did in season. His biggest game being against the Seahawks. 6 touches, 123 yards, 2 touchdowns. If he could follow that up and give them another weapon offensively, I think this team will be hard to beat. Well, Skadimes, when you're talking about the New York Giants, I think it all relies about their offensive line and what they can do defensively. Can they get to the quarterback? You're going up against the number one sack team in the league. That offensive line is going to have to be very, very stout, very legit, and be on their game. If Saquon can average somewhere between 4 to 5 yards to carry, and they are really good at throwing the football, making plays off the play action, this team is going to be hard to beat. They can bring the heat too when it comes down to sacking the quarterback. They do get after. They had a big time sack game in the playoffs, so I think they can get after it with the type of guys they got coming off the edges. But when you look at stats, it's almost like you got to tone down everything because when you look at the Houston Texans, their stats are lights out all over the place. When you take a look at this Houston Texans team defensively, I mean, there's nothing that this team can't do. Coach Prime challenged the secondary to get INTs this year, and everybody stepped up to the table. Christian Gonzalez being the number one corner in the league with 21 INTs, 11 pass breakups. Derek Stingley kicked in with 16. He had 10 pass breakups. Now you're looking at Shiloh Sanders, the star position. Shiloh Sanders, the star of their defense. Not only is he the star of their defense, 89 tackles, 7 INTs, 5 pass breakups. Eli Ricks comes in that slot and corner, fourth corner in the dime nickel packages, and he has 7 INTs. But then you have Galvatron, a 6'5 freak at strong safety for this team. This guy goes from free to strong. He plays back deep. They don't use him in the sub packages at all. They keep him back deep, and that size, speed, and that technique that he comes to the table with, well, you can see why he's out of this planet. That's why they call him Galvatron. 6 INTs as well. But the guy that I'm concerned about that's going to give this Saquon Barkley and this Giants offense a problem is their middle linebacker, Demoy Kennedy. He's one of the fastest linebackers in the NFL. He might be one of the fastest players in the NFL. 128 tackles on the year, 19 tackles for loss, 5 INTs. But that doesn't, if you don't like those numbers, you got to take a look at what they do for as turnovers, right? They are a turnover machine. 6 forced fumbles from Yaya Diaby, 5 from Will Anderson. But when you look at the look-ats, right, you look at Demoy Kennedy, he has 4 touchdowns on defense. Christian Gonzalez has ran 4 INTs back with 4 as well. But Demond Kennedy has a nose for the end zone as a defensive player. He's my key to this whole thing when it comes down to the Houston Texans and Coach Prime and Charles Kelly. What they want to do is all about what does Demoy Kennedy do. If he can be all over the field and run sideline to sideline and make a play, usually when he makes a play defensively that results into a turnover and results that into a touchdown, this team is undefeated. When it comes to the Giants and their defense, you're not going to see a lot of stats when it comes down to getting INTs, man. Their best corner, best DB is Adoree Jackson. Everybody else is really young. But when you look at the sacks, you don't see a big number, but Dexter and Kayvon Thibodeau together, they got 14 sacks. They have a lot more guys productive in the sack department. When you look at the Texans and how they get to their sacks, they got two guys that went over 40 sacks this year. But after that is a significant drop off. Well, anytime anybody has 40 sacks, those skadibbles, you know it's going to be a drop off. You got two coming off the edge for the Houston Texans with 40 plus sacks. Yeah, but the drop off, skadibbles, skadimes, listen to me. The drop off is this: after those 40 plus sacks from those two guys, it's a significant drop off. I think the next best player is Elliott Donald with 4. Right, you got a couple of guys that's getting to the quarterback. Josh Allen, you got to worry about Andrew Farmer. You also got to worry about Baldonado. There's not a lot of big, huge numbers, but these guys present a problem. I think this is a really good matchup. I think if you show the numbers, anybody that's a betting person that's going to Vegas is going to bet on the Houston Texans. But when you dig into both sides, both teams, and what do they do good, what weapons do they have, and what protection do they have, I think it lines up, right? You got a really young football team going up against a mix of young and youth and veterans. And I think because of that, the Giants are right where they want to be at. Simple as that. When you talk about both these teams in the matchup, man, again, X factors are at the quarterback position. I don't think Herbert is more of an X factor than Shedeur Sanders is at the quarterback position for this matchup. I think they have to run the ball and run it consistently for them to be effective and for them to do what they want to do. Now, if the run game is working, then that means Saquon Barkley should be the MVP of this ball game. But if the run game is working, that means Justin Herbert is going to have a field day off play action. And we're going to have to find out if these guys are going to better play the run, because if they run the football, that man in the defense will be changed, right? Charles Kelly has no problem going to zones, and he like to play a lot of clouds, cover 6-9s, things of the such. He wants to keep those DBs facing that line of scrimmage. If he does that, I think the play action football will be very, very, very presentable for the New York Giants, and that's playing right into their hands of what they want to do offensively. Skadimes, I wouldn't disagree with that. But what I will say is those Houston Texans, they have firepower everywhere. There's an all-pro player at every position on this football team. Look, you start at the outsides. You look at Marvin Harrison Jr. and what he's done all year long. Then you go on the other side, you look at Jimmy Horn Jr., who's been their ace, right? He's their playmaker. He could play in the slot. He could play outside. He runs kick returns and punt returns back. He can do it all, right? But then there's the guy in the middle, DW, right? The 6'8 freak at tight end. And if you're not done with that, you can go right back to the backup tight end who plays everywhere, plays wide receiver, running back, fullback, and that's Brock Bowers. They use him how Georgia used DW and Brock Bowers together. And the way I think this game goes, if Brock Bowers comes in and gives them a matchup problem, I don't see any way in shape or form that this Giants defense can stop this Texans offense. As we get into our bets and who we think that can win this ball game, I'm going with Saquon Barkley, the MVP of this ball game, and the New York Giants win a close football game, but they win the ball game in the fourth quarter with Saquon scoring the game-winning touchdown. I would say I agree with you, but I'm not going to Vegas and placing that bet. I think this game is going to be explosive, and I think the Houston Texans are going to give their best game. Now, think about what I'm saying right now. If they go out and play their best game tonight in the Super Bowl, what does that tell you? Because we thought we saw a lot of their best games all season long, especially through the playoffs. The way they took care of the Chiefs and then took care of the team that beat them last, they beat them down, and they did it on both sides of the football. I think this team is poised to win the Super Bowl, and Coach Prime is about to shock the world. I'm going with Shedeur Sanders as the MVP of the Super Bowl, and I'm winning this. I think the Houston Texans win this game by 3 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns, Skip Bibbles? Oh my God. So we don't have no faith in the 9-8 Giants, huh? I think this is going to be history repeating itself. When the hot team of the New England Patriots came in with that undefeated team with Randy Moss and all those guys running all around, Wes Welker and all those guys running around, Tom Brady at the quarterback position. What happened in that game that changed that game for Eli Manning to go win the game? Defense, pressure, front four up front. That front seven is going to play well for the New York Giants. I think they play well as a tandem, as you can see the stat line, where you didn't see too much separation from the top sack guy to the last sack guy, right? This team is going to play very, very good fundamental football, and they do a good job of getting to the quarterback. I still have Saquon Barkley, MVP of the game, and the New York Giants winning the ball game. Well, I could disagree with you as long as I want. I think this is a 3 touchdown game, and I think Shedeur Sanders. And the more I think about it, AI could play a big role in this ball game too, man. You're looking at a running back that the moment he left junior college and signed with the University of Maryland, he's been a 2,000-yard back, and he almost had a 2,000 yard season as a receiver. I think that they don't really allow him to go crazy the way they can because Shador is such a good player. But it comes down to all the marbles. They want to host that Lombardi Trophy. You don't think they'll give that kid the football and allow him to be good all the way throughout this game, because you don't just got to worry about him running in between the tackles or outside and around you guys. You also got to worry about him catching the football out the backfield. I like this matchup tonight. Kickoff. We're going to see who's going to win this ball game. Skadime's got the Giants, and me, Skedaddles, I have the Houston Texans winning the ball game. We shall see as we turn it over to our guys that's on scene right now, live, right before the kickoff, right before the national anthem. They're going to get Coach Prime coming out of the locker room, talk to him, and on the other side, they're going to be talking to the old New England Patriot coach and see how he feels about this ball game. When we come back, Super Bowl 2024. New York Giants facing the Houston Texans.